Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our review of Aquaman with the boy Benny.
Hello.
And we're out without Connor this week. I literally just started recording the episode, guys, and I realized about a minute in I was not recording. So we're going again on this take.
Yeah.
But yes, we will get Connor's review in for sure when he's back on Australian turf.
Because we respect your opinion, Connor.
Yeah, we do. And he's going to go against everything that we say in this review. I'm very excited for it. Nonetheless, we have seen Aquaman earlier today, and we've been talking a lot about this film, the only film from the DCEU to be released in 2018, for a long break since Justice League last year. Aquaman was not supposed to be the one to save the DCEU, but here it is, and does it save the DCEU? Well, we're about to find out. But let's catch up on what we were thinking going in.
We've done a lot of talking about this movie. We've had a huge lead up in between, between Justice League and this. Whereas Marvel's releasing 3 a year now. Justice League was just the worst possible scenario for DC, and then it's like, it's all right, guys, we have Aquaman coming up a year and a half or something. I was always open for this. I like, as much as we rag on DC, all I want is for them to be making good movies. I fucking love DC in general, not in the movies necessarily. James Wan was really the only thing to hang on to here, I think.
For sure.
Just a really interesting pick, a really interesting director, and someone who it felt like could really step away from the dour tone of the DCEU up to this point. They got Joss Whedon in for Justice League to take over, and that movie just ended up as a mess. Yeah. Like, as much as we'd say, Zack Snyder was not a good architect for it all, I think the Joss Whedon stuff was probably the worst stuff in Justice League.
No doubt.
Crazy that the guy who put together, I think, 2 fantastically successful Avengers movies, ended up coming with that. I can't believe he took that job.
Dollars.
Yeah. My main thinking point of this movie was that, a huge underwater superhero epic is going to be so much more money than it's worth, especially when it's a movie about Aquaman. The world seems to have proved me a little wrong. It seems to be being received quite well. Very strong opening box office weekend with no Star Wars competition.
It's already beaten Solo, sitting at $556 million.
That's really, really good.
$160 to $200 million budget. I'd say it's closer to $200 million.
It's fantastic. I mean, if this gets some good word of mouth, it could possibly...
It's going to hit $1 billion.
Could crack the top 10 of the year.
Yeah.
if it's gets to it quick.
You still got 4 days, Mamoa.
Yeah. I thought it was going to bomb. So I guess good on you, DC, for exceeding my expectations. How are you coming to this?
Yeah, pretty similar, man. All I was holding on to was James Wan. I'm a massive fan of his stuff, and the Fast and Furious movie he did was great in terms of being a fan of his and seeing him go to that next level with a higher budget, but it did nothing for me as a film. So I was much more excited to see Aquaman more in my wheelhouse of what I would enjoy. And to be honest, the trailers have really impressed me, especially that 4-minute lengthier one, which they kind of had to do. And I think that was a really good move for them.
Been marketing the shit out of this movie.
That for me was the one where I'm like, okay, I'm in. And that Black Manta scene on top of the rooftop and all that, that really roped me in. So that's kind of what I was feeling. I guess let's get into overall impressions before we...
start dissecting this fish.
Start dissecting it. Yeah. I really, really had a good time with Aquaman. I laughed. I was emotionally invested.
Yeah.
I think the pacing was a bit strange in parts. But I saw things that I've never seen put to screen. I think the scale of this film is quite bold. You're seeing a lot of different locations. Jason Mamoa was very strong. Really, I'm very impressed with Aquaman. There's faults here, no doubt. We can get more into that as the review goes on, but overall, that was a good superhero movie, and kind of a better than I was expecting, I think.
That's awesome. At the risk of spoiling my review, which I don't think I am because this isn't really saying anything at all. I think it's probably my favorite DCEU movie up to this point.
It's my favorite.
I don't know about the best. I still have really conflicting feelings about Man of Steel. I feel like so much of that movie's construction is so fantastic that
Have you watched it recently?
I haven't. No, last
Honestly,
time
it's
you
a
watched
slog, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's so beautiful. Zack Snyder did an amazing job with the look of it, but God, it's a slog.
I've never had a movie that more on alternate viewings I go like 2 out of 10, 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
So it's so divisive just for me. But yeah, this one it just shits over everything they've done for the past few years for me.
This is the best DCEU film for me.
Yeah. I don't think that's a controversial statement at all.
And it's fucking Aquaman. What in the fuck's going on?
Yeah, the bizarro world DC headlines that we've gotten over the past few years, like Justice League is a flop and Aquaman's huge.
Yeah.
Is so crazy. This is such a kitchen sink movie. It feels like 7 movies jammed into one. Some of them are pretty good, some of them aren't. But the one word that describes this entire production is enthusiasm, which I don't think has been present one lick in the DCEU up to this point. Like, this movie is a goddamn puppy whose owner just got back from war. It's like I want to impress you.
Yeah.
Like, it's licking at your face. It's
Yeah,
throwing everything at you.
Yeah. For sure.
And for the stuff that doesn't work, it just passes over very quickly, and then you're onto some huge, crazy set piece or some amazing new CGI landscape, some awesome creatures. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this movie, and I think it for a movie that's 2 hours and 20 minutes long, it did a great job of maintaining its quality. I would say, like you of all people would be tired out by a movie that doesn't kind of keep up the level you're expecting. And I thought this movie kind of, by the end, like by the very end, I'm like, it's really good now. And this is a great time for it to be really good.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time when otherwise I'd be like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
And that would, that'd be your final thought on the movie. That would sour everything. But it ends very strongly.
Yeah, I wasn't even getting at the end, like, final battle, okay, let's go through the motions. Like, I was there till the end.
Yeah.
And I think you are 100% correct in that there was enough interesting stuff to go along, and it didn't overstay its welcome, and, you're on to the next thing within moments. And that kept your intrigue throughout the whole thing.
And I was just talking about in our weekly show, check it out, about the show Titans, DC's Titans, and how unashamed it is about its comic book origins and its comic book universe. And this is the first DCEU movie that I felt approached that level of, fuck it, this is a comic book. Let's just throw it all in. Black Manta's here. He looks like Black Manta. There's an octopus playing drums.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Aquaman looks like Aquaman, despite casting, Jason Mamoa as him. Like, they just threw all that wacky shit in, and
it worked
for the most part. Yeah, it worked, and they were fine with it. And I'm like, that's the key here.
For sure.
You don't need that Batman v Superman self-seriousness. Like, the first hint of this I actually got was in Justice League, which is in like the 1 or 2 parts of Justice League I actually enjoyed, the post-credit sequences. Which the Flash and Superman one, which looked garbage, but was a fun moment of Flash racing Superman. I'm like, that's great, that's comic booky.
Yeah.
And then the very end with the Society of Evil, or the Legion of Doom, with Lex Luthor just being a supervillain and getting some guys together. And I'm like, this is fun. This is what this stuff should be.
Yep.
And I think this movie, closer than anything so far, really achieved it.
Yeah. I think the emotional weight in this film, it resonated with me. I mean, it's nothing amazing, but in terms of like a drama or some a really intense film, but there's some emotional weight to this. With Jason, with Aquaman and his parents.
Well, that's the thing.
And I felt it.
Yeah, they found such a great hook with something that a lot of people could relate to, which is just the love between his parents, and that was really the main emotional angle of this film, I thought. That really worked for me.
It really worked.
Tamura Morrison, the Kiwi actor who stars as his dad, is not very believable in whatever accent he's trying to pull off.
What the hell?
But
was that Australian, Kiwi, or American, or English? Like,
oh man,
roll
it was
the dice.
just his Kiwi accent when he hit some hard R's on it though. And Nicole Kidman as his mum was not much better either. But there was something, I guess, so genuine about
Yeah.
that. Like Temuera Morrison, especially. You just know from like small Australian productions, or of course Star Wars, Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And
Django.
Yeah, but he was just so believable as this kind of like down on his like little guy.
Their relationship really worked for me. This is
Very
the best
sweet.
I've ever seen Nicole Kidman on screen. I normally find her incredibly irritating, but I
Wow.
really enjoyed her in this.
I think you've probably missed some very good movies that she's in.
I think so.
Yeah,
No
but
doubt.
in terms of like kind of her bigger stuff, I really like her in Batman Forever, but that's for different reasons. And how about Momoa, the man himself, the big guy, the linchpin for the film?
You know what? I was in the cinema and I was like, imagine if you had swapped Patrick Wilson and put him as Aquaman. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I feel like the bro California, surfy dude is inspired casting. And I feel like so much of this film working rests on his shoulders. Aesthetically, it works. His attitude, he's not playing Arthur Curry, he's playing Jason Momoa. He is perfect casting for this. And for me and my sensibilities, I don't know if they could have made it work with many other actors cast in this role.
See, I wouldn't say it's good casting at all. I would say it's excellent movie making this movie around him. As you said, he's playing Jason Momoa.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just like splitting hairs here.
No.
But yeah, he does such a good job in this because they made the whole movie, in spite of him being Jason Momoa. That's why he works so well as this outsider to Atlantean culture. Like he's, like you said, this big surfer dude.
Yep.
And he's like, fuck you guys. And
Yeah.
It works fantastically. And he doesn't have a lot of range in this performance. He's not asked to do too much in that regard. But the way they write him, it's not really needed there. And he's very entertaining to watch. He works really well. I don't know where they're going to take him in future films necessarily. It's kind of reminds me of, the first Thor, where he had a very simple arc and he got right to the end of it. Later down the line, they've managed to do very interesting stuff with Chris Hemsworth's Thor, but that's because he's, I think, a surprisingly good actor. I don't know if they'd be able to do the same with him, but in this movie alone, he works really well.
Yeah, I really like his character and his performance. Somebody who underwhelms me a lot, but really served the purpose very well and kept you on board with the journey was Amber Heard. Found her very stiff in the front half of this film, but it seemed to sort of relax a bit more, and maybe as the relationship built more with Aquaman. But at the beginning, I was like, Jesus, man. I mean, she's stunning. Great costume as well. Fantastic look. The hair actually didn't distract me.
Yeah.
I think they've done something with the grading, bringing it down, but she was super stiff at the beginning. And it gradually warmed to her.
Yeah, I completely agree. All I'll say is I thought her performance was in the bottom 5 worst things about Justice League. So I thought she was a lot better in this.
Yeah, no doubt.
She had a weird accent in Justice League that she completely dropped for this movie. Thank God. By the end, definitely much better. While we're running through them, Patrick Wilson as King Orm, or is it Patrick Wilson, George? Does it look like him?
He's got weird little pointy hair. What the hell?
I really liked him.
Me too.
Yeah, I thought he was. He was.
He had good justification behind his vendetta against the land.
Yeah, it could have been a very generic storyline. The two people vying for a throne. One of them's just a dick. One of them's evil. And there's a bit of that, but he has like you said, some good justification. There's some cool
genuine concerns. I feel
there's some cool environmentalism stuff in there. But also his story goes in some directions that were less generic than I expected.
Yeah.
And I really like that. There was just a 50% more of an actual character to him than they could have gone with.
Yeah.
And that was cool. I liked his performance. He does a lot of yelling in this movie, and his voice is strangely melodic or operatic. It sounds like he's singing for a lot of it. Atlanta. He doesn't have like a booming voice or anything. But yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Black Manta.
Yes.
Not a huge role in this movie. It's maybe more of a look than anything, but just a really cool presence. And he gets a lot of story kind of front loaded into this movie.
Yeah.
And I was really on board with what they were doing with him and where his character was.
I wish we'd seen more, but I think we're going to see more. I don't want to put too many spoilers out there, but
maybe we won't.
Maybe we
There
won't.
go.
But
it could go either way.
loved the first initial scenes with this character. I was really on board.
Yeah.
I think he had an interesting dynamic in there. It didn't get to Spider-Man 3 where you've got too many villains.
Totally.
It nested in there perfectly. As I said, would have loved a little bit more. Maybe a couple more scenes here and there. There was a big patch where you didn't see him. God, I hope I'm not getting too spoilery there, but I am 100% on board with him, and I hope we see him in some other movies.
This movie,
That's a killer
yeah,
name
it's cool.
as well.
It's cool seeing, like an unknown guy in a role like this. I want to go through all the cast because this cast is fucking huge. But just when you mentioned Spider-Man 3 there, it made me think I really like the dynamic of the multiple villains in this movie because it wasn't like, you just have one big evil guy and some henchmen or something. Everyone had their own motivations.
Yes.
They were different. You have like a main villain sort of, but he's, not, he's doing his own thing. He's not just like trying to pick on the hero.
Yeah.
And then there's this other guy with his own motivations.
He's trying to manipulate or build coalitions within the seven Seas, the seven kingdoms, and there was a lot more gray area. Who's the bad guy, who's the good guy? It's hard to say in a lot of ways. So
we had Willem Dafoe in here as Volko, the vizier to the king.
Yeah.
And Aquaman's mentor to some extent. A lot of de-aging on a few characters in this movie. I thought it worked varyingly.
it looked like de-aging.
Yes.
It wasn't Ant-Man, level or...
Yeah, it wasn't bad except for a couple of moments where I think it was quite bad.
Yeah.
I think it was mostly successful on Willem Dafoe in particular. I think he played another role in this as well, a voice role, which we can maybe talk about later.
Django Fett's, that actor, he had some dodgy...
Yeah,
face
Tamura
work.
Morrison. The movie starts like 30, 40 years ago. So that was substantial de-aging on him, and it was not a great...
This one's just removing some of the crow's feet from Dafoe.
Adding some very... I don't remember young Willem Dafoe looking quite this dashing, actually.
I wanted to see more of that craziness from Willem Dafoe here.
Yeah.
Thought it was solid, but I could have seen many other characters take that role. The other actors take that role.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it.
But he did a good job.
Okay, I'm going to say something here that is completely overblown and unreasonable, but I was borderline blown away by Dolph Lundgren in this film.
Okay.
I thought he was really good.
He was.
That's entirely symptomatic of just not expecting anything from Dolph Lundgren, who I've never seen a performance from that even borderlined on speaking English
Acting.
properly. Yeah. And that's unfair. I haven't seen a lot of Dolph stuff, mostly like Expendables and all that crap.
Universal Soldier.
Yeah, but he plays, like the head of one of the kingdoms in this movie, and I thought he was a really cool character and quite an integral part to the movie, and just a really good performance. Like he
held his own.
Well, there was an intelligence to him that I wouldn't have expected. And I know he's an incredibly smart guy in real life, but in movies he comes across as that action star sort of dude. But yeah, I really believed him as a leader of this thing. And
I agree.
Yeah, can we segue from him, I guess, into the hair effects underwater?
Yeah.
And just the underwater in general, because this was a huge point of curiosity after Justice League did that whole air bubble controversy thing. So everyone's just underwater in this movie. They're just speaking underwater. Their hair's always kind of floating around CGI.
Except Patrick Wilson, who's in this weird, fucked up man bun
It's a
with
strange
no
thing.
like
bun.
elastic there, and I'm like, how is that happening?
It's like he had one of those fake pinned on ones and it just floated off at some point. I thought the hair worked well. Like I didn't find it distracting, and it by all rights should look horrible and really distracting.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure how... I don't think they nailed the underwater stuff, but it wasn't distractingly, and it wasn't like Justice League where I was like, what is going on? In this one, I was like, I just went along with it. I don't think they completely nailed it, but it worked. It worked.
Yeah, just to be clear, how impressive I think it is that it wasn't that distracting. There's like a subdued kind of vocal effect, like it sounds like underwater, which could be rough. There was like some kind of wobbly filter on it, which I only stood out at one moment when Willem Dafoe's eyes floated together for a second. I was like, oh.
I only really noticed that in one scene, but yeah. There was they did a good job with that.
Like, yeah, I think the fact that you don't really notice it is a strength because there's a lot going on to make this an underwater world, And I, like I said, with the unabashed comic bookness of it all, I love that, they just went for, we're talking underwater.
Yeah.
And I even liked how anytime someone, like one of the characters who could breathe on land or in water, came out of the water, they just cough up all this water out of their lungs. It was a funny little detail, and I'd heard about that well in advance. I'm like, oh, that's stupid. They just have him, but I kind of kind of liked it.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of humanizing for these Atlanteans. I think that covers pretty much all the cast there.
Yeah, I would love to give a shout out to Rupert Gregson-Williams, who did the score.
Yep.
I
Good
think
score.
this is a killer score.
Yeah.
Black Manta's theme in particular, like really disconcerting.
Yeah.
I loved how it worked within that initial scene. I loved also the Tron elements coming through with that 80s retro 8-bit kind of thing. And I thought it worked well, but I can see people not being into it.
I was totally into it.
Yeah.
I was really, I completely agree, because I thought the score, like the movie, was a little all over the place. Like it changed motifs and styles quite heavily.
It did.
And when the kind of synthy stuff came in a little later on, I was like, okay, we're doing this now. I'm like, fuck yeah,
I was
cool.
on board.
Yeah.
Because it matched the neons that they went for in Atlantis, and it complemented the visuals nicely.
A lot of range in the score and some really cool themes.
And just traditional, more epic kind of comic booky music.
But not in a generic way, just you like kind of kind of stuff. Okay, you just mentioned the word visuals, so let's just jump into the visuals on a broad sense. This movie ranges from, fuck, that's some of the worst green screen I've ever seen, to, my God, that's some of the most beautiful imagery I've looked at in a movie this year.
And things that I've never even seen before.
Yeah, and I would say it leans more towards the latter of looking really good.
Yeah.
Like, this movie would have been expensive, and you can see that. They've got it on the screen.
I think there was points in here where I was like, oh, it would have been cool if they'd gone on location there.
Totally, 100%.
But once again, it didn't distract me.
Yeah, and it just seems more and more like it's not a reality anymore.
Yeah.
Like the opening in particular is very egregious because it's a combination of de-aging and green screen and all this stuff. Yeah. And that's when you're kind of sitting there like, this is just, they don't care anymore in movies, do they? Like, they just accept that this is how they have to look.
Yeah.
But then once it gets rolling, and especially towards the end when the scale really explodes, it's some stunning stuff.
It looks, I mean, if this is $160 million budget, that is impressive.
Is it?
160 to 200 million, they're saying.
Fuck, that, yeah, wow.
I think that they've done a fantastic job. As you said, man, at the beginning of this review, kitchen sink. There's so much in here, from vehicles to different creatures, locations. Like, the amount of production design and concept art and preparation there must have been to put this together is quite phenomenal.
Yeah, it's on like an Avatar kind of Star Wars-y scale, you know, where it's just, you've got a frame, and that frame must have taken thousands of hours of like man work and rendering. And
yeah, when they first go to Atlantis, like they're sort of dipping through different bridges and whatnot, and always there's a big whale coming through, or some turtles, a school of fish. Like, it feels like a living, breathing city.
Yeah, and it's an amazing design in the similar vein to Black Panther, but it's actually able to back that up with the effects, which Black Panther really unfortunately wasn't able to do.
Yep.
So yeah, just as a visual kind of feast, really well worth it. I mean, the trench sequence in particular, which we can talk about a lot in spoilers, was gorgeous. Yeah, that was some of the best stuff in the trailer.
I think we've only like 90% of this review has been positive. What were some of the more negative aspects for you? Unless you have some more positives to bring to the table.
I'm sure I do, but no, good to get into them. If you're thinking of something, go, because I don't have too many.
I think for me, the main issue here is it's more in the sort of conventions of the story narrative and the arc it takes, because there's a MacGuffin element, you know, Amber Heard, Jason Momoa head off on an adventure.
It's an Indiana Jones story.
And that really only kicks in the latter half of the film. And so it feels a little bit lopsided, where you have a lot of stuff in the beginning that could have probably been kicked on to the second, the second, third act. And you could have done a bit of a reshuffle to make it a little bit more of a traditional tale, but it manages to get away with it purely on the amount of stuff going on, keeping your intrigue. It's entertaining that the 143 minutes, 2 hours, 23 minutes doesn't actually feel that long.
No.
And I'm notorious for getting twitchy in movies and wanting to get out of there because, 2 hours, 2 hours 30, it's really got to be pumping. And for me, I wasn't getting fidgety in this. And that is a testament to me that it was working.
Yeah, I would say, and this is a very light criticism, that
So I don't know why that's a negative.
for a 2 hour and 20 minute movie, that I agree don't felt long. I don't know that I'd run into it again anytime soon. And my favorite blockbusters, I want to go and watch straight away.
I could watch that again.
I could definitely watch it again. But there would be, so unlike something like Infinity War, I know there would be several bits of it where I'm like, I can't wait to get to the next bit. Like I'm not hating this, but I just want to move on. The kitchen sinkiness of it really was not just in terms of content, but quality as well. Like there's some downright bad stuff in this movie. I can't even remember it off the top of my head, which is great because that means the good stuff was more plentiful and more effective.
Yeah.
Like this is not a slam dunk of a film. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's not at that pedigree of, like, as I just mentioned, Infinity War, which is just quality beginning to end. This movie is really sloppy in places. Like the enthusiastic dog I mentioned. It's so all over the place, but when it's working, it's really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And it's just so enjoyable. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Entertaining, I think.
Yeah.
I think James Wan, I think what they've tried to do with the DCEU in the past is making it very grounded, very sophisticated, darker, more human. And what James Wan has done in this is make it colorful, entertaining, filled with jokes, earnest. It has emotion in there. He's managed to make it work.
Yeah, if it
for
has,
better or worse. Like, as you said, there are some parts in there where you're like, CG doesn't always work. Some crap green screen, pacing's a bit off. But on the whole,
dialogue, performances.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts hold it together enough that it works.
Yeah, and it results in a product that has a lot of character.
Yeah.
More so than so many blockbusters. Like, I could see rewatching this and not being bothered by the bad bits, just being like, oh, that's Aquaman, that's this movie. And speaking of James Wan, one of the most interesting directorial kind of performances I've seen in a blockbuster, especially at this scale, like some of the camera work in this movie is, love it or hate it, it is wild. Like there are some one-shot action scenes that aren't your usual, just like kind of tracking and coming back and forth. Like they're flipping up around the camera. It's some really inventive stuff in there that feels like it would have to come from a director this hungry.
I think I've just got to give my hat off to him, man, because
we always say he's like one of the patron saints of the podcast. We're always like, and I'm like, I've seen like so few of this guy's movies, like maybe one Fast and Furious movie, but you kind of get that feeling from him, and what a good job he did.
I'm super impressed. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into spoilers?
God, probably not. I want to kind of temper my review a bit. I'm saying so much positive stuff. I really don't think. I really don't think this is a knockout. But it's a lot of fun. At least.
Yeah, I've got to say I'm so impressed with Aquaman. I was worried with that 2 hour 23 runtime was kind of rattling around in the back of my head when the lights went down. I thought to myself, I hope James Wan can just hold my intrigue throughout this, and he did. And he managed to make Aquaman, I can't believe I'm saying this, the best character we've seen put to screen, or the best complete film that we've seen in the DCEU. That's kind of mind-boggling, and I think we're in a brand new era of superheroes where we're not just relying on Superman and Batman. Let's go and explore some of these more oddball characters and bring something fresh to the screen. So, I had a great time with Aquaman. I look forward to seeing it again. And it's not a home run, but in the DCEU, it's a step in the right direction. And I hope James Wan stays on for a second one because he's got it locked down, I feel. Yeah,
it's a step in the right direction, not just as a standalone film, but in the ways it tackles the continuity of this stumbling universe. In that it doesn't feel beholden to Justice League at all. Like I couldn't tell you how this fits in with that movie.
There's only one reference.
There's one sort of reference to it, but even then I'm like, no, but how did... What?
Yeah.
And we can talk about that in spoilers, but it had me confused. It feels like maybe there is hope for this universe if they're happy to just say, fuck it, throw off the shackles of continuity and tone between these movies. Just say, let's just make the most outrageous fun movie we can. If that doesn't gel with what's come before, it's paying off. So do that. I overall recommend seeing this movie in a cinema.
Yep.
If you don't think you're going to see it, it's probably not going to win you over, so don't watch it at all. But if you have any interest in the DCEU, even if you've been burned 6 times before, go watch it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm 100% with you. So let's get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the film, guys, get on out of here. This is a fun one. So we don't want to spoil too much because whilst there is a lot in the trailers, there's a lot of stuff in here that I did not expect. And that was fun. So do you want to kick things off with the Steppenwolf-y stuff? Or?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So they actually name check Steppenwolf in this film.
Very jarring, I found.
I guess there's no other way to reference that movie. Like, Steppenwolf is another one of the bottom 5 things about that movie, but what else would you say? It's like, oh, you saved the world from a thing. And yeah, I was like, because there's one point in the movie where they mention, oh, he's never been to Atlantis before. I'm like, well, he was there in Justice League, so I don't know. Is he saying he's literally never been, or he's just there for a couple of minutes? Does that mean this is before that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly his outfit in Justice League. He has sort of an Aquaman-y outfit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
So it's like, how does he have that in Justice League? Where does he get that from?
Oh, Jason Mamoa.
Yeah.
Aquaman.
Yeah. Because if he hasn't been to Atlantis, he's not vying for the kingship or anything.
He doesn't have the gold though.
He doesn't have that one, but he has kind of a more Zack Snyder-y version of it.
It almost looks like the Krypton armor, the brown. Oh, so he's shirtless there. He was was he just shirtless?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. He has a lot of tats.
Block that movie out. Yeah. Maybe that's it.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, he did. And here, this one. See, it's sort of that Krypton looking.
Yeah.
Got sort of the bronze and browns.
Yeah.
Textured sort of look with bulky shoulders.
Yeah, and he certainly, for the benefit of this film, doesn't mention any of his new friends, which was a weak point of Wonder Woman, I feel. Kind of roping Batman into it.
Yep.
So yeah, I just loved that this movie, whose biggest hurdle I felt was following up, that movie ostensibly being the introduction for this character, and no one having seen it, and those who did hating it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get over it by just ignoring it and working on the marketing and using Momoa's charisma to sell it to people, and that worked gangbusters.
Yeah.
That's maybe emblematic of moving forward. What people have to do is cast people who are better salesmen than actors.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I found interesting with this film is it kicked off straight away. Like he's saving Nicole Kidman. Like there's no preamble. There's no like, in the beginning there were 7 seas, and
there wasn't
none of that.
There was a lot of narration from
there
Momoa,
was.
which not a lot. Like it was pretty scant, but it was effective. I thought.
I liked how they
Like the
contextualized it through the characters, not just the Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson.
Totally.
You learnt about Atlantis and the conflict, but through the eyes of Jason Momoa or Aquaman's narration. And I thought that was number one, you're getting emotion, you're getting character development. Number 2, you're learning about the world. So sort of hit 2 birds with one stone. So I thought that was quite well done.
And maybe people would take me to task on this, but I feel like the exposition was never too egregious. I feel like the fact that they had to introduce this entire world, 7 kingdoms, all these different kings and characters and bullshit, monsters, and it felt kind of natural because you were still finding out stuff quite late into the game.
Yeah.
Like you said, it wasn't front loaded with this big, once upon a time there was all this bullshit. The dark world.
Yeah.
And the ether.
Yeah.
This movie reminded me a lot of Thor 2 in a lot of ways. Different strengths to each, I feel. But what was that?
Yeah, and I liked how that you saw the development of their relationship, and then that crazy action scene where they came in. I thought it roped me in, and I thought it was a really strong intro to the film.
This isn't spoilers, but we've got to talk about it before. The costuming in this movie, because you mentioned those guys coming in. That's the first glimpse you get at kind of these,
techie look,
Aqua Power Rangers.
Yeah,
and yeah, I loved it.
I loved it.
Pretty much all the costuming in this movie. It was very cool. They have like awesome sci-fi suits full of water.
Yeah. And they're just playing with dials. Like it could have been an MCU movie. It could have been Star Trek. It could have been whatever. And you go with it. It's not like, oh, we've got this plasmic energy that's allowed. No, you just go with it. And I like that.
Yeah.
You fill in the gaps yourself.
And we'd already gotten a very good glimpse at Aquaman's proper costume, the real, green and gold type deal.
Killer.
It looked great. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really looked good.
Yeah.
And,
Not cheesy either.
No. And Black Manta, who's probably going to be the most divisive one, I loved to death. He's straight off the page of
I
a
wish
comic
we'd
book.
seen more of him in the movie.
Yeah.
I loved that opening scene with after the sub scene, let's call it that, where Black Manta comes on board the submarine pirates, and I really liked that scene.
Yeah, I loved that they allowed Aquaman to do something as unheroic as just leaving that guy with his father to die and be like, "Fuck you guys."
Yeah.
And that really informed their story moving forward, and probably moving forward in future films as well. And I really liked how that was handled.
I got a lot of emotion from Black Manta, and I thought, I just want to say, I'm glad they kept him alive in this movie, because I think there's a lot more to explore
100%.
there.
Yeah. He is like the kind of proper Aquaman villain.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going back to exposition, there was one piece of exposition with Patrick Wilson's character where they were, I think he was with Dolph Lundgren, and they did the exposition. That was the only bit that really stood out to me. Everything else seemed to be very tight and not over bloated.
One I was confused by was when they were just about to enter the Ring of Fire, and Patrick Wilson was talking about the monster that even King Atlan was afraid of, and it's awakened, and I was like, is he talking about himself? What's going on?
Right.
Because that wasn't relevant to that scene at all. That monster didn't show up for a lot longer in the movie.
Yeah.
Said monster, played by Julie Andrews, Mary Poppins, which I thought was really fun. I liked how hard they lent into the fact that he just talks to fish, because in the comics they've often shied away from that and be like, no, he can like send electrical signals that attack their brains and just make them do whatever he wants, because fish brains are so simple. But he literally talks to them like with words. It's like a psychic thing.
Yeah.
And the end of the movie completely hinges on the fact that he uses that power.
Which at the end, like, it was the only time where I felt like, oh, is he like, is he controlling them, or like, is he manipulating them, or is he asking for their aid in his endeavor? So, and he didn't really answer that.
No.
But there was one point where these dolphins and shit were getting fucked up, these whales, and I was like, damn, you okay suiciding? Like, are you okay with that? But not nothing bad. It was just sort of a question that came to me.
You could take it either way. The movie doesn't explain. Let's talk about the trench sequence and what follows.
Can we quickly talk before that just about the sea below the sea with the dinosaurs?
Well, I was going to say that after.
Oh, okay,
since it leads directly into that.
Okay.
No, but you brought it up now. I love it. It's full on Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth. The Earth's core is full of dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That was not explored very much, but the fact that it was there is so cool.
I thought it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And we'd seen so much in the trailers, and I was like, wow, they still got more surprises.
I read about that in a review.
Really?
In a non-spoiler. I was like,
what?
I was really annoyed. I was like, how is that not a spoiler? Like, that's one of the most interesting things in the movie. I'd completely forgotten about it, which is good, yeah. And that's, I went over when it came up. I'm like, best movie ever. Like, it's like we're suddenly on Dinosaur Island in the middle of the earth.
So much fun.
Like, that is so insane, so nuts.
Yeah.
I love that they were happy to do that in a movie that's set in the same universe as like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Which was, so pared down.
Oil
and
rigs.
that kind of stuff.
And,
yeah.
And I loved how they'd given Nicole Kidman's character dreadlocks. I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
She'd become like, bone armor.
Yeah, she'd become Michelle Pfeiffer from Ant-Man and the Wasp. And like Michelle Pfeiffer, she's still had pretty good makeup going.
And I really liked the scene of him getting the armor and the trident.
Yep.
I thought that was I thought it was once again, didn't overstay its welcome and moved on swiftly. And
it was a great moment of him kind of explaining his stake in all of this and what he's actually doing. And it really sold the character to me. Like, I loved his whole thing about like, I'm nobody, I'm just doing this because I have to. And, I care about these people. And I loved I didn't like very much in the trailer, or it just didn't do anything for me. He's like, what could be greater than a king? And they're like, a hero. But they really sold it with the line after that in this, where it's like, kings fight for their nation, heroes fight to save everyone.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's so much better.
It works in the narrative
explains,
perfectly.
the character fucking brilliantly.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Now the horror movie in the middle of this movie, the trench scene, which comes completely out of nowhere. Like, they're heading to this area and they've talked about monsters and stuff.
Oh, you mean you don't mean the final battle? You mean
No. Sorry, no. I mean with the trench.
Sorry,
The trench,
yeah.
kingdom.
Holy shit.
Yeah, where they're just on the boat and then suddenly there's a monster here, and I think that is going to be a very memorable jump scare for children. Like, that's going to be up there with Bilbo jumping through the ring.
Yeah.
Or some ones in Spider-Man that really got me when I was a kid.
And nice to see a bit of James Wan's heritage or past genres that he's delved into come through.
Yeah, there's like a solid, like, it's not that long, but there's a solid little bit on the boat there where it's just a proper like creature monster movie, house siege.
They look like
type
xenomorphs.
Thing. Yeah, they were creepy. I loved it. I loved the little glimpse of them in the trailer.
Design.
Yeah, and then that follows on to just
incredible visuals,
some amazing stuff. Yeah.
Really disconcerting with them going below the surface and these creatures just following them. And I was getting like goosebumps. I was like, oh,
yeah,
freaky. And the red lights and everything worked so well.
Yeah, just absolutely cool. And I love that he brought them back at the end. Like, he got control of or dominion over that kingdom as well. Like, I love that. It's funny that they were the first kingdom to kind of
relinquish,
recognize his authority.
Yeah.
And then still by the end, they're still introducing awesome new stuff, like the fucking crab people that show up at the end. I was like, that's what these guys are good. Wow, fuck yeah.
I love the general, and he's like, his mouth isn't even moving, but he's just talking.
That was Willem Dafoe.
Oh, was it?
It's such a distinctive voice, yeah.
Right, okay.
But yeah.
Fuck, that was fun.
Like, I will never recognize you.
Well, why are these guys all in this movie? It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, why weren't these the first king? Why aren't we following this?
Yeah.
This
why
kingdom?
isn't he Aquaman?
Jimon Honsu as the Fisherman King did not get a lot of movie.
He got about 7 lines.
And then his daughter takes over. I'm like, okay, cool. I love that she was there at the battle as well at the end. Just a little thing.
I wish I'd seen a bit more of him. He's got such a distinctive voice.
Yeah, and a really cool design. I love the balls to the walls. Like, this kingdom's crabs, this one's mermaids, these ones are just monsters.
Just gone off their head. Don't know what the fuck they are.
Yeah, there was one moment that maybe might lose some people where they were recounting the history of Atlantis. It's like, and then we sank, but it's okay. We learnt to breathe. It's like, fine, I'll go with it.
Darwinism?
I don't know if everyone will. Some of us turned into crabs.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think what I like about this movie is that they don't feel like they have to explain everything.
Yeah.
And you do go, you're either in or you're out. And I was in.
Yeah, and a lot of people are going to label this movie as dumb, and probably in the context of dumb fun in a positive way.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really doing it justice. Like, this is just a personal pet peeve of mine when it comes to movies at all. I was reading a great top 10 the other day that was talking about how this guy doesn't believe in guilty pleasures. He believes in entertained or not entertained. Mm-hmm. And this movie definitely falls into the entertained category.
Yeah.
I don't think it was dumb. I think it was very willfully choosing to be this fantastical, They were like, some of this stuff doesn't make sense. That doesn't matter. Let's just make this movie as it is.
Yeah.
I think that's to be commended, especially coming from the DC.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, that trench battle at the end was insane. It was felt like Lord of the Rings level scale.
Massive, yeah. Like, that's like as if you didn't already hate The Hobbit enough. Like that, you're looking at that like, man, they've done this right.
And
this is the Battle of Five Armies.
And it wasn't a 30-minute sequence. It was probably a 10-minute sequence.
Yeah,
and that works in its advantage.
Yeah, it wasn't overblown. And then you get the cool just one-on-one at the end. And I love how that wrapped up.
Love that one-on-one.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh, hang on. We haven't talked about this. Ocean Master's costume. This is huge. This is like a metal faceplate with moving eyes, just like in a comic book. I love that they just went for that.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know the history there, but...
Oh, well, no. I mean, no, there's nothing to that. There's just like...
When he's angry,
it's a mask. His eyes move like Deadpool's. Like, that obviously Deadpool's kind of paved the way in Spider-Man for this sort of thing. Yeah, with Spider-Man, they felt the need to justify it with technology. With Deadpool, just because he's a crazy, wacky character. Yeah. And in this, they're like, let's do it. Yeah. Let's just do it. And I would love to see that with Batman one day, with his just white eyes that move with a mask. Like, they've done that with makeup generally. But I fucking just love that they went for that.
Yeah.
And I thought
didn't even really think about
the costume in general, I thought was gorgeous. That looked exactly like Ocean Master. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what his look is really, but I think the production design across the board for this really sold it to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Anything else? There's probably a million things we can probably chat about in the next one.
Yeah. I really want to try and watch it again before we do that one. I guess if we're coming to the end, I'll just say I absolutely loved the end. I love the final narration. I love the reconciliation between the meeting of his parents again. And just that last shot of him shooting out of the water and that hero pose was fucking wicked.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. I mean, we should talk post-credit scene.
Yep.
Black Manta.
Yep. Just sequel stuff.
Teaming up with...
Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat. Who is one of my absolute favorite actors. I was so happy to see him just in a very brief role on the TV in this, and then he shows up at the end. I was like, yes, make him the sidekick to this guy, like the bumbling.
But there's I think what I like about the sequel is in this one we're playing with the Atlanteans against the land people, whatever you call them. Earthlings, I don't know what the fuck. And I'm excited to see Aquaman take on Black Manta, take on a human who has a personal vendetta against him. I'm really, really think there's a lot here for a sequel to explore.
Totally. Talking about this movie has made me like it more. It's all been very positive what we're saying. I don't want to mislead anyone necessarily. The movie, sure enough, has plenty of issues. You just look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, it's on 67 or something. I feel like that's not unfair. Not everyone's going to love this. But I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Me too. I'm really happy that Aquaman was a solid movie.
Of all things for it to be, and really, really hope that this is them turning shit around.
Me too.
A bit more diversity in the creatives getting involved, and I'm not saying that in a political way. I just mean
sensibilities.
He's a real left of middle pick for the DC. Like it's just all been Zack Snyder up to this point, really. So, this is cool. I hope they can keep doing shit like this.
Keep him on board.
Yeah,
keep him on board. And if the box office reflects anything, is that people are holding similar sentiments to us. So
very charmed by Jason Mamoa.
Oh, what a hunk!
Yeah.
And with that, that's our Aquaman review. As I said earlier, Connor will be back and we'll try and squeeze in another review or some kind of preamble because we'd love to hear his opinion on this. Hopefully he hates it and we can be there defending it.
It's going to be some arguments.
Anyway, we'll see what happens in the DCEU in 2019. Plenty of exciting stuff coming. I can't even remember what movies are coming from DC.
We have
just quickly have a look.
Birds of Prey.
Is that next year?
Fantabulous Emancipation. I don't know what it is.
We got Shazam.
Joker's got to be next year in Shazam.
Yep.
Not DCEU.
Yep. So Joker, we got Shazam and Birds of
Shazam.
Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Oh no, that's 2020. Sorry.
Right.
So we got Shazam. Okay. Well, I mean that's looking like it's taking a similar approach to this. So I think.
Hell yeah.
I think
if they can just get two in a row.
Two in a row, man. That'd be nuts. That'd be nuts. Anyway, we'll be here behind the scenes reporting about it. It's going to be amazing. And we'll be back next week. It's been a pleasure, Benny.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Not for me.
Okay. I'll try work on that.
I just miss Connor.
Yeah. Yes. And goodbye, everyone.